rock sharp. That's when the signal shines in. Got the mic set up and the camera spin. Grab a coffee, pull up your chair, join the drive. 'Cause the only place to be on a Monday night at 9 is right here, alive. We're drilling down deep on the legend of fur, the biggest mystery ever did stir. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the same with Gary Kendrick hosting with King. He's heard the howls, he's caught the form's trace, a true seeker leading the chase. Something stirs out in the shadowy wood. Let's uncover it together, just like we should. The team is geared up, the map is laid clear. We bring expert voices where the facts appear. We feature top names on this digital plane, from Meldrum's big theories to Strange Rich Strain. With Lyle Blackburn and Scott Violet online, we chase the elusive one sighting at a time. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the screen with Gary Kendrick, host of the scene. He's heard the howls, he's seen the dark form, a true eyewitness leading the storm. Something is lurking out in the dark wood. Let's find it together, just like we should. We give you the legends, the truth laid raw, and a unique track for the tale of the law. So subscribe to the channel, heed the lead. We're planting knowledge, pulling up the weed. Yeah, Monday night, 9 Eastern, YouTube Live. Sasquatch Watch Radio, where the quest thrives.
Hey, everybody. Good to see everybody tonight. Tonight is March the 2nd, 2026, Monday night. And as usual, you guys are watching Sasquatch Watch Radio. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We have a great guest joining us tonight from Florida, Mr. Mike Aguilar. He's from the Mid-Florida Bigfoot Research Group. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Mike on. If I can get
Hello.
this thing to work. Hey, Mike. How you doing, brother?
Hi, buddy. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Oh, great to have you on. Great to have you on. I'm going to jump right into it. About 8 years ago, and I believe it's Citrus County, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but Homosassa, Florida, you had your first encounter. Tell us about it.
You nailed it, Homosassa. So I grew up in Wesley Chapel, which is in Pasco, Florida, and I was actually going fishing, and I don't even live up that way. I was just going fishing up there, and do a lot of red fishing up there. And it was about 6:30 in the morning, and that time of year, you know, the sun's kind of like just peeking up and coming over the top of the trees. And there's a private road, or not a private road, there's a private boat ramp that I use. And when you're going down and you take it down that little road to that private boat ramp, there's a series of S curves back there. And as you're going around the one curve, you can see to the third curve. And it's probably about a 75, 80 yards up ahead. And as I was coming around that curve, this figure was coming up on the side, you know, coming up, and I could see him up ahead. And as he came off from the side of the road, he was just shadow, and he walked into the road, and I could see it. It looked over at me as it took a step into the road. And on its second step, it walked into the light, and that was behind it. and it turned from shadow to cinnamon color. And it was clear as day. And he was about 7 foot tall. His arms were down below his legs. And the hair, you could see the hair behind, like you just see it. Like the way it stood, like a silhouette behind it from the sun, the way it was hitting it. And I came around the curve, back the other way. It was gone that quick. It was just a quick road crossing right in front of me. But it was like a camera click, took a picture, you know. I saw it clear as day, and I jumped out. I looked at my best friend. We were going like together going, and he was looking out the window, never even saw it. I'm like, how do you miss this thing? Like this thing was huge. Like, how did you miss that? But that from that day forward, my whole life was changed. Like, I had to figure out what I saw, and I dove nose first right into the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. Same thing with my first encounter. I had a visual in 2006, and I tell people it's worse than dope. Once you get it, you're done. You're hooked.
100%.
It's tough. The cinnamon color, I think that's pretty interesting. That's the same color that I saw. Was the cinnamon color.
What are we doing here? I don't know why my phone just did that. My gimbal just decided it wanted to say no.
And
right.
Yeah, the cinnamon color is pretty interesting. Which I'm gonna talk about hair color and stuff a little bit later on. But yeah, the cinnamon color was the same color that I saw. Because what I saw was massive. It was probably 8.5 feet. And let me just do huge. Only way I can describe it. Huge.
This one was honestly, I would say it's the first one I've seen. I've had other sightings, and this is the only one I've seen that was that cinnamon color. And the other ones have been black. But this one was, I mean, when he hit the light, it just lit him up, and he was this perfect cinnamon, brownish cinnamon color. But he wasn't real thick, like giant, bulky. I always say it looked like a real hairy basketball player crossing the street in front of me. He was, big, and just kind of lengthy. Wasn't super bulky at all.
When it comes to encounters like that, generally there's like 3 different body shapes that they describe. Like I had the huge, just giant, muscular, just absolutely massive. And then there's, like you described, the tall basketball player, still muscular but kind of slimmer. And then there's one that's real gangly, kind of thin, almost like emaciated. But those are usually the 3 descriptions that you get. Did you get any facial features or anything in your sighting? Could you tell anything about its face or anything?
Not that time, because the sun was behind it, so it was completely shadow. It was just a shadow. I could just see its head turn as it went across the street. It looked towards me and then looked away, and then I hit the curve and it was gone. It was just like it only lasted a few seconds. But
that's the thing about roadside sighting. They're hard. It's hard to get any detail. I was like super close.
It's so quick.
Literally,
it's so quick.
Yeah, mine was literally about 3 feet. It was standing at the end of the bumper.
Oh man! Did you get to see his face or anything?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was. I'm an older dude. Okay, I'm 56, and I grew up with Patterson Gimlin film and In Search Of and all that. And growing up, I always thought it was something that was out west. It wasn't here on the East Coast at all.
Right.
And it sure wasn't in Virginia. And when I had my sighting, I was like, yeah, it's everywhere. But yeah, I did. I got a real good look at it. I was expecting something like Patty, which it did have. It had the height, it had the bulk, and everything like that. But its face was more human than Patty's. It was almost Native American looking. It had the higher cheekbones. It had like a Native American shaped nose, but it was just really wide and really kind of flat. But it was the same shape as a native nose. And even the skin color on the one that I saw was kind of, it was tan. It wasn't, you hear a lot of black or ash color or gray or something like that with the skin. But this one was tan. It was brown. So yeah, it was a really interesting encounter, and it was a good one.
I had another encounter a few years later in the Green Swamp that I was only 15 foot away from one, and I was very close. I was very close, and I hit him with an LED light at night, so it really lit it up when you hit something with a bright LED light. And I can tell you that one if you want to hear that little story.
Yeah, tell us about that. That'd be great.
I was that one was that's definitely the closest I've been, and I was we were doing a group deal. We had like two or three different groups out there, and there's this big field that backs up to a tree line, and there's a couple ponds and stuff out there, and the groups were in there doing call blasts and some different things. And I talked to my friend Tim. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go walk down that tree line. I was like, while they're doing the call blast, whatever's going to come up is going to come up to that tree line, you know, and be paying attention. So I went down. It was about 200 yards away from where they were at. And I'm walking the tree line, and I saw like a little opening. He stayed back about 75, 80 yards, maybe 100 yards out. He was out a little ways and just keeping his thermal on me watching. And I see an opening. And when you walked in, there was a berm, like a fire berm where they dug out a fire road. And it was an old one, an old fire road. And so I stepped in, and right when I stepped in, I turned my headlamp off because I heard something. And I was like wanting to be quiet. And it walks in, you're about 6 foot up off the ground when you walked on that berm. And on the other side, it dropped off. And I could hear something in the palmettos, crunch, crunch, crunch. I'm like, it's like deliberately like making a really loud sound. And I realize now that it was deliberate. I think it was trying to draw me away from his buddy that was right there that couldn't move out quick enough. And I didn't realize it. You're sitting there and you're like, you get that like, oh crap feeling in your stomach. And I'm listening to him and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I smelt it or if I heard something. Something made me realize there was something beside me. And I took, you take your button on your headlamp, and I clicked it and I turned and I let go. And when I did, it was right there. And it scared me so bad that my hand was still on the light, and I clicked it back off. I clicked it back off. But it was just long enough. It was just long enough. I lit him up, and he had his back to me. He was every bit of 8 foot tall. Huge. He was big. His shoulders had to be 4 foot wide. The biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. He was freaking giant. And he was standing right where a limb was like this. And part of his shoulder was behind this side. It wasn't a real big tree. He just, I guess, went to whatever he could do and went froze mode. But when that light hit him, he had kind of, this one had kind of like a real, like coarse hair. It wasn't soft looking. This one looked kind of coarse and like he'd been in the swamp, but it hit him. And when it did, I saw that his skin was blackish purple. It was almost, it was so dark. It was so dark. It was almost purple. It looked almost oily. I'll never forget how that color skin as the light went through his hair. And I was like, oh my God. But I turned around, fell trying to get down because I'm thinking now, I'm like, dude, I could have reached out and grabbed that thing, you know, I could have walked up and grabbed him but your brain goes into, oh crap mode. And you don't have much, choice in that matter. You have to do what it tells you. And I guess I was in fight or flight mode because it ran me out of there. My brain did. But I slid out. I came down that little hole. I came out and walked out, and I was all butt puckered walking out, and it's all on thermal. But he's over there looking, and we went back and looked at that thermal image, and you can see a thermal. It was too far away to get good detail, but you can see that thermal image right there where he was at, and he never moved. He didn't move at all when we're watching the thermal film. He just stayed that way. I don't know how long he stayed that way, but he went complete freeze mode and didn't move. Like I think he was never there.
That's a real common thing in a lot of sightings, where they'll just freeze up and stand beside a tree or something. And people say, oh, that's, strictly just Bigfoot, stuff. But I'm going to tell you, I deer hunt, I hog hunt, I do a lot of hunting. And a lot of animals, when they know that you're close, will freeze.
Just freeze.
Because most of the time, the camouflage is good enough that you're not going to see them.
Yeah, you walk right by them. How many times have you walked right by a deer and it jumps up and scares the crap out of you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Or you walk by a brush pile and kick it, and a big hog runs out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredible, but that happens a lot. Mike, I'm gonna move on here. Can you Can you tell us what type of activity from Sasquatch is most common in Florida?
What kind of activity?
Yeah.
As far as like what we hear, what we catch them doing, what we hear them do, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a lot of tree structure things going on. A lot of little tree. It's almost more tree art than tree structures, but and I feel like a lot of it is marking territorial markers and directional markers. We get a lot of that, and when you follow it was you find an 8-foot break that's got a perfect bend to it, that's at a perfect angle, the same time. Each one 7.5, 8 foot, and you look ahead, there's another one, and then you go. We found it so many times where there's 4 or 5 in a row. You keep going, and they keep leading you to something else, and it feels like it's always directional. But then other times we find these weird glyph-looking things, found weavings, found all kinds of different things. The area that I've been in lately, it's been a lot with vines. I've been finding the vines have been like the water vines have been like just manipulated in ways that aren't natural. I know they grow kind of funky, but like on a random stump sticking up and the vine that shouldn't be nowhere near it being wrapped around it in certain ways, and a lot of weird vine stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Stick structures are a real common thing throughout the U.S. I don't know what they mean. I don't have a clue. You know, I've got some theories. I'm like you. I think they might be territorial markers, or they might be, you know, just something that the juveniles are doing to kind of keep busy. You know, kids will do kid stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I caution a lot of people in research to really take a look at the stick structures that you find. If you find a stick structure on a pretty well used hiking trail, I consider that kind of suspect. But now, if you're a mile, half a mile, 2 miles off a hiking trail and there's nothing else around, and then boom, here's this big X or a TP or something like that. Yeah, that's pretty prominent. And I try to use a lot of the scientific method, and one of the rules of scientific method is repeatability. And you hear that over and over and over again about these structures being built. So it's an interesting theory. It's an interesting phenomenon, I think.
Well, you keep finding the same thing, like you say, over and over and over in different areas, you know. And I've noticed too that like Florida has a lot of corridors because we have a lot of people moving in and building around, and these corridors have gotten small. And that's kind of the reason I think that I've been so lucky. And I say luck and a little bit of good thought involved too. I looked at it like, where would all the game be? And that's how I found them. And that's what I started doing on my own afterwards. I started going out and just filing these funnel areas. There's a lot of them. And they run right through the middle, they're right to the back of neighborhoods, some of them. But, you know, some of these places, like, they'll go down and connect, and everything connects in one big circle and loop in these corridors.
Uh-oh.
You bet. There you are.
I know. Yeah, I know a lot of stuff around here. We have a lot of power line cuts, and I think they use these corridors from the power line cuts and things like that. Any animal would, you know. It's just easy travel.
Oh yeah,
that's where a lot of that comes into play.
One of the most active areas I go into is right where there's a power line that's cutting behind a multi-million-dollar neighborhood, and it cuts right through a preserve, the power line, and it hasn't been mowed in probably 30 years because the creek runs right through there. I have one specific creek that has been the lifeline to most of the stuff I found since I started doing it in 2017, and everything kind of revolves around that creek. And I've been all up and down it. The creek goes from Pasco County down to Hillsborough County, and it's 20 miles long at least, you know, that it runs before it runs into the Hillsborough River. And that eventually takes you back over to the Green Swamp. It all connects. It's, you know, and that's where these little narrow areas are where I started paying the most attention to. And that's where I found everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's excellent places to look. It's something really good for a lot of new researchers. Anytime that you can find a power line cut like that or anything, I'm telling you, go there. You're going to find stuff.
Oh, well, this one in particular, me and my son, we went there, and I came in from the one direction, and we went up to the creek. And if you get up to the creek is basically cutting you off from the other side. And in order to get to that other side, you got to walk almost 3 miles around. Not many people were hiking 3 miles around to get into this spot. Nobody is, especially in this, where this kind of snooty neighborhood it would be, you know. But this preserve hasn't had people in it for a long time. It's left alone, and nobody goes back there. And it's loaded with hogs and deer. But me and my son were at this creek, and I took him fishing. I was squatching a little bit too, and he didn't know it. But we're sitting there and we're fishing, and he comes up to the side, and he starts freaking out, and he's like, "Dad, you can see like there's like a Z on the creek the way it goes up." And he's on the side, and he's looking up, and he's like, "Dad, there's a guy looking at me." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, I look over, I don't see nothing. I'm like, he's like, "I think I saw one of your Bigfoot friends. You know, he was younger." And I'm like, "Quit playing with me, Kalen. You know, don't mess around." This is when he was first going with me, and he was like 6 years old. And he's like, "Dad, I see him again. I see him again." I'm like, "I don't see nothing, you know?" And I'm like, and then I started hearing the barred owls going off. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the barred owls don't usually go off. And these barred owls were going off, and they weren't normal sounding barred owls, and they were going off a lot. And it was like, usually you hear them go off, and then you'll hear more off in the other area going off. These were all going off at the same place, whoop, 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 all in the same spot. And it was creepy. It was so many of them going off. And he started crying because I almost didn't believe him. He started crying. I made him draw me a picture of what he saw. He drew me a little picture of this one looking at him on the side of the tree. And he's 100% confident that's what he saw. So the next day, I took him home, and I'm like thinking about it the whole night now. I'm like, I got to get to that other side. I'm like, I got to get over there. So I took my dog with me, and that ended up being one of the craziest encounters I ever had. And it led me to that spot. That place has had a lot of stuff happen at it. But I walked around the 3 miles around to get into it. And you get in there, and first trail I took in, I kind of followed my dog. She was kind of leading me a little bit, and she was following some smells. And I go walking in. I found 3 palmetto palms that I could see them up ahead, pushed over. And I'm like, "Wow, that's kind of funny. Palmetto palms don't fall over a lot." So I start walking in, and I get up close to it. And on each side of that palmetto palm trio, it was pushed over like this. It was dug out on the backside where the root ball is, completely looked like it had been dug out and something had been laying in it. On the other side where the palmetto side was, it was bedding under there. And on each side behind the root ball and behind the tree itself, there was a tree that had been skinned on each side like a support. So it couldn't fall either way. There was no way for that tree, that group of trees, to fall either way. It was supported. And then I came back and walking around, I found another root ball that had been dug out. I ended up finding like 5 of them. And they looked like little bedding areas. They were taking the root balls, they were pushing the trees over enough and digging out from underneath them to make quick root bedding, it looked like to get out from underneath the sun or whatever back there. It was a swampy area, but it was dry that time of year. There was no water in that area. During the wet season, it would be underwater. But I went from there and walked back out to the main. It was like a 4-wheeler trail that I went through. And I started walking down that 4-wheeler trail, and I found 2 footprints, the biggest ones I've ever found to date. And that was 19 by 10, 19 long and 10 across from the toe pad. It was huge, huge impressions. And the first step had this much mud. This thing had to be 800 to 1,000 pounds, whatever made it. And the first step on the back of the heel behind it was this big. And then the next step, I didn't get a measurement of how big the stride was, but the next one was into the grass. It was off the trail. It wasn't even in the trail. So it did that through the grass. And then the grass one, like I said, I have good pictures of these. I have to share them with you sometime. But I had about 3 weeks before that, I had a bad experience. So my gut was going off again, saying, I don't want to go through that again. I got hit with infrasound. I'll tell you that in a few minutes. But this time, I'm like, I'm going to wait this time. I'm going to come back with somebody. I found these footprints, and I know something is big. Walk this way. I'm follow your gut this time. I don't want to be creeped out again. I've had 2 bad experiences. This was one of them. About the time I'm taking pictures of these footprints, my dog started growling, and she started doing like a low growl, and it was right towards the wood line in the direction they were walking. 20 yards from me, you couldn't see into the woods. It was too thick into the wood line, but you could see the tree sticking out of it. And I heard what sounded like a stomp. It felt like a stomp, like you felt it, just boom. And she jumped up and her hair perked up, and I'm like, oh my God. And I see that tree in the middle go and move. I'm like it moved again. And it started going. This is, going like, I can't see what's doing it. I just see the tree. And this is a 50-foot tall tree. And it probably had to be 10 inches around or more. It's just like it was a little twig. And this thing let out a yell and pushed the tree over, all the way over. My dog freaked out when she heard that thing. She like almost hung herself on the leash. She was wanting out so bad. It freaked me out so bad. I turned and yelled, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Like to the point where I like had some tears rolling up in my eyeballs. I thought I wasn't coming out of there. I thought I pissed this thing off and it's coming for me. And I got on the phone, called my friend as I'm running out. Like I wasn't running. I was doing a speed walk. I didn't want to run because I didn't know 100%, never run from a predator. And I'm trying to walk out. Miley is pulling me. She wants no part of this thing. And I got out. Nothing ever happened. I called my friend telling him, hey, this is where I'm at. Remember, I told you where I wanted to go. If I don't show up in 20 minutes, you don't hear from me. This is where my body's at. Like this thing it scared the crap out of me, man. Like never, like you never feel, if you don't never felt primal fear, if no man has ever felt primal fear, you're not a tough guy. You feel that like you can be the toughest guy in the world. You are nothing after that thing when it happens. I never was scared of anything until I started coming after these things. But my dog, that ruined her for that day on. She would never go down a trail again. She caught wind of it, she'd stop. You couldn't drag her down the trail. She was terrified of it.
Yeah, I know there's a weird relationship with Sasquatch and dogs. I don't know what the deal is. A lot of dogs, especially seeing hounds, won't track one. They absolutely refuse to track one. And you hear a lot of reports of I think one of my favorite ones is I can't remember where the guy was at, but it killed his dog. It was a German Shepherd and it threw it over his fence.
Oh, I remember hearing that. I remember hearing that story.
There's something about dogs and Bigfoot. Yeah. Yeah.
This is
pretty incredible.
That's the best.
Without being real specific. That's a good one. Without being real specific, tell us about your research area. I don't need to know, grid coordinates or exactly where you're at or it's your area, but just describe us, what your research area is like.
Well, I've got a couple of them, like I grew up in Wesley Chapel, and that was where I was at for a long time. And that's in Pasco County. And that area up and down that creek area, it's like a subtropical rainforest back there. It's different. When you're around that creek, like you get all around it, you have pine forest and everything, but through this area in particular, it's all palmetto palms, like a rainforest. It's real muggy, totally different environment when you get anywhere within a few hundred yards of this creek. And that's where up and down that creek is where they're at. That's their lifeline. But up until recently, I got to go into the area where I had my first encounter, and got to realize up in Homosassa now, because I live close to Brooksville. I'm an hour north from Wesley Chapel, and I love it up here. And I'm in an area where 3 different corridors meet together. Like everything meets here, and it's a phenomenal place. You've got the Chatsawiska Forest to my left. You got the Withlacoochee Forest just above that, and you got the citrus management area, and which is another part of the Withlacoochee Forest to my right. I'm slap in the middle. So I'm 15 minutes from everything. And I've been going back and forth in between. I'm like, I don't know which one I like more. But we've got cave systems up here in this area, which you don't have a lot in Florida. It's a very unique area. There's caves, and it's this one area I've been going into. It's extremely hilly. Like I was where I had something happen was in the middle of a ravine that goes down 60 foot. You don't have that in Florida too often. where you've got a valley, almost like a holler, like a little small holler back there. And you don't have that in Florida a lot. This area is such a unique place. But you go to the left, and like I said, it's like a rainforest again. So this area's got all of it. It's got natural springs. That's what's really cool. Me and Christina, my other half, she goes with me too quite a bit. And she's a member. I'm sorry, my gimbal is dying on me or something. There we go. I'm trying to help it out, but it's, of course, it was charged up full. I don't know what the heck happened to this thing. It just decided to go take a crap on me. Did I get it? Oh, it reset. Okay. Hopefully, never mind. It's doing it again. I'm going to hold it. All right. Sorry. I'll just hold it. It's all right. We'll make it work.
Technology.
But we went hiking the other day through the Withlacoochee Forest with a friend of mine that I've met named Robert, and he locates caves. That's what he does, and he's the guy that you call whenever you want to go recover a body inside of a cave where somebody's gone diving and whatnot. But he was showing us some areas where these springs are. Man, these is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. You're walking through 3-4 miles of nothing, just thick, real thick palmettos and moccasins and everything. And you pop out in this beautiful spring that's 140 foot deep, 160 foot deep. And it looks like why not? Why couldn't there be something living back here? Nobody would ever see it. Nobody's walking in there that deep. There's not many people. Only the very select hunters are going to walk in there and go mess with that. And we've had a lot of stuff happen there, but that's pretty much the two types of areas I'm in. I'm in either the hilly cave type of areas or I'm in the rainforest. That's what it feels like.
Well, we're about the halfway point in the show here. And if you'll remember when I first contacted you, I asked you a really strange question. And that was, what kind of music do you like?
Right.
And for all of our guests, we create a song. We've created you a song.
Oh, nice.
And I'll
really?
play it for us right now.
In the land of the cypress and the Spanish moss, where the trails get thin and the tracks get lost, there's a man in the brush with a steady hand, the greatest scout in the gator land. He grew up where the citrus grows and the Wesley Chapel mud between his toes. From Lutz to the lakes, he's a native son, and his lifelong search has just begun. He's a Florida tracker, the swampwood king. Listen close for the call and the cedar swing. With a heart like a lion and a quiet stride, there ain't no shadow where the wild things hide. Mike Aguilar's on the Skunk Ape trail, heading deep in the pines where the hunters fell. In the humid haze of the morning light, he's chasing the legend through the Florida night. He's got the mid-Florida crew right by his side, with Marie at the wheel for the midnight ride, checking every print and every broken limb. The mystery of the woods belongs to him. He's teaching his boy how to read the ground, how to sit real still when there's a heavy sound. The next generation's got the torch in hand, walking in the boots of a legendary man. Been on the radio and the silver screen, telling all the folks about the things he's seen. From the great big conference to the great Northwest, he's putting all the skeptics to the final test. Yeah, he's a Florida tracker, the swampwood king. Listen close for the call and the cedar swing. with a heart like a lion and a quiet stride. There ain't no shadow where the wild things hide. Mike Aguilar's on the Skunk Ape trail, heading deep in the pines where the hunters fell. In the humid haze of the morning light, he's chasing the legend through the Florida night. He's the Florida tracker, the Swampwood King. Listen close for the call and the cedar swing. With a heart like a lion and a quiet stride, there ain't no shadow where the wild things hide. Mike Aguilar's on the Skunk Ape trail, heading deep in the pines where the hunters fell. Out in the hammock where the shadows creep, while the rest of the world is fast asleep. Yeah, he's out there tonight. Just Mike and the big guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's kind of old Alabama. That was a good one.
I like it. That's pretty damn sweet.
We'll hop right back into it here.
I appreciate that, man.
Sasquatch research is, people just sitting in the woods. Hey, don't worry about it, brother. Like I said, a lot of people think, Sasquatch research most of the time is just two people sitting in the woods, or, a group of people sitting in the woods, and you're looking at absolutely nothing for the longest time. And with that being said, how often do you have activity, and how intense is the activity when it does start?
Well, we always have activity. Like, I mean, I don't know, I've been told that these things choose people, and that they choose who can see them and who can hear them and who they'll be comfortable around. I don't know how much of that is true, but it feels like it, because we've been blessed. And I've had two bad experiences when I first started, and I realized that was me. It was my fault. I walked in on something that didn't want me to catch it off guard, and I caught it off guard. And I don't do that no more. I don't dress up in camo and go playing in the woods like I used to, and sneak up and try to catch it off guard like I did. Now I knock before I go in. I let it know I'm coming, and I bring my kids, man. The kids has been the biggest thing. My son, especially my son has selective mutism, and I'm very ADHD. He's very ADHD. And I believe that I have a lot of friends too that in this field, and we are all ADHD, and neurodivergent minds, and very creative and very keen to everything. I'm not a professional tracker. I'm not a professional hunter. I'm not anything like that. But what I have is very good instincts, and I'm very good at finding where these things are at. And I don't know why that is, but it's worked for me. And everywhere we go, we have a lot of activity. Like, I truly believe it's because they're curious of us because of the approach we take. I walk into a place, and every time I walk into a place, I mimic the things I've heard. Most of the time, it's just a little whoo. That's just the sound I've heard, and I make my own sound. So I've got it where I make them comfortable with my sound. My son does it, and we'll go walking in, and like, you'll hear them. You'll hear a sound when we go walking in, respond back to us a lot of times, and then it'll go that it gets to that quiet, deadly quiet mode where you don't hear nothing. You couldn't hear anything. And then they're there, and they're following you. And it's not a scary way. It's not a creepy way. It's amazing, actually. Like, a lot of times it's like I can literally feel them following me. We can hear them, follow them, feeling us. My daughter starts talking to him. She's 7. She's the next one coming up. I can't keep her back anymore. She's got the itch like crazy too. It's the cutest thing ever. She goes with me, and she starts talking. She's telling, "Hi, Bigfoot," every time she gets in there. So, man, they are following us around. And I think it's because of that great positive energy we bring with the children and everything. But everything from at night, we hear all kinds of sounds. It's always active at night. It's very rare that it's not, to be honest. Like the other day, Christina, like I made a couple sounds. I didn't hear nothing. Christina lets out a sound and you hear this loud respond back to her. And I'm like, oh my God, well, there he is. And we go into, no matter where we're at, something's happening. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's just because of that great positive energy we're bringing in. We're not hunters. I talk to them all the time. I tell them, hey, I'm coming in and I'm bringing my family with me. I'm not a hunter. I'm not here to hurt you. And for whatever reason, it works. Thomas taught me that when I was up there and I got to meet him. He's like, talk to him, tell them your intentions, respect them, respect the forest, and then watch the type of, treatment you'll get back. And it's true. It's happened so much.
Yeah, I know we had Thomas Seawood on the show, and he talked about, he said, like, one common mistake that people make, he says, you go out to look for Bigfoot and you're all in camo and you're all camoed up head to toe. And you go out there in the woods, and when Sasquatch sees that, he thinks, okay, that's another hunter.
Yep.
Avoid that dude. And he said, if you just go in, plain clothes, blah, 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 whatever, and, don't try to make, trying to think how to say this, and it's killing me. You go in, you make noise, you talk, you do things that normal people would do instead of, the hypersensitive, predatory type things that you might do if you were hunting.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There's nothing quiet about my kids going through the forest. There is nothing quiet about my kids running through there. And my lady too. My lady she's not quiet. I love her to death and I have a blast with her. She's not quiet in the woods.
And I know you mentioned it a minute ago that, you're not a professional tracker or anything, but you've grown up in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I've got to know, what is it like trying to, track in all that palmetto and pine straw, and there's just so much stuff on the ground in Florida.
It's very, very challenging. It's very challenging. Like, I've learned so much from this, and taking pictures and videos and studying the different impressions I found. You've got to literally, a lot of the footprints we get, you don't get toes. So it looks like a shoe print. It looks like a big boot print. And it's so hard to tell the difference. I had to start, sometimes you got to use a tape measure to figure out that's way out of the realm of a boot. But a lot of times, like this is a smaller one I have, one of my first ones I ever got. That's one of the few times I actually get a toe. A lot of times, all I get is from about where that is right there, down. That's all I get. And it looks like it could be possibly a boot. You don't know, but you can obviously see there's a toe in there. And I have another one that has a really good. I had another one that had a really good toe I got from that one. That one was ironically, there was an area I was in for 2 years. I was spending a lot of time in, and I learned a lot from this family group. I know it was a family group. I found 7 different size footprints back there, and it got to the point where I would walk into these. There's 2 trails to walk in, and it was behind county property, and it led to this preserve. I grew up on the other side of the preserve, so I started coming into this side. And there's 2 little trails that led me back that preserve. I'd walk in, there wouldn't be a footprint. I come walking out and find 5 or 6 of them behind where I'd already walked in. So they were coming in behind me, following me in. And they did it all the time. But they weren't nothing threatening from this family ever. And my son interacted with them all the time. But it's so challenging. You can obviously see that's the type of terrain. That's not a perfectly flat print, It's that's one of my good ones. We got sugar sand. We've got this black, super dense mud. You've got, it's either that or it's super wet. The wet, that's almost worse than anything, is having them too wet, and you can't get a good print out of it. It's almost impossible. And like the other day, this is one of the better ones. I got it on a kind of a hard terrain. And this was from where I had that encounter the other day with my son and with my family. We pulled this print from a trail, and while this was drying is when that happened. And that's one of the few times I actually have good toes, like legit nice good toes. And this isn't a big print. It's it was only about a half inch shorter than my foot, but it was 2 inches wider almost. So it was a kind of a short, wide print, which matched what we saw, you know?
I know. I kind of have a theory with footprints to try to rule out human versus, maybe a Sasquatch print. And my theory on it is the width. Now, you may have something that's proportionally human in length, but most of the time, like one of my best prints was 15 and a half inches, but it was 7.5 inches wide.
Right.
So that really, that kind of makes it up. And the theory that I work on is most of the time the length of the track, if it's a Sasquatch track, half of the length should be the width or fairly close to it. So if you've got a 10-inch track, maybe 5 inches wide, and that works out pretty good. I've had quite a few, that turned out to be, wider than a normal human with that size foot would be.
I've noticed a lot of times it's the heel. That heel is so much, even wider than your boot. I'll put it up and I'll put my boot up to it. I wear a size 11 and a half. So that's a pretty good size boot when you're wearing a snake boot, So that's like almost a 13-inch long boot by the time it's all said and done. And my boot's about 3.5 inches wide. And most of the prints I find, like this one, that's 4 inches, this way. That's, 4.5 inches wide. And that's not even a big print. Some of the other, but that 4-inch gap is about the average on one of the heel that I find. And the toe pad across is usually about 5.5 to 7 on average that I find.
Yep. Yep. And that's usually a good rule of thumb. Once you study tracks, you'll see that difference. And another thing too, I look for a lot in tracks too, is toe pattern, which is really hard for you guys out there in Florida, I know. But in a human track, the big toe is always deeper. And the reason the big toe is always deeper in a human track is your big toe is responsible for propulsion. That's what pushes you forward. So all of your weight's going onto that big toe and pushing you forward. So your big toe will be deeper, and the rest of the tracks or the rest of the toes will be a little more shallow. But when you're looking at a Bigfoot track, they don't have the same type of propulsion that we do. All of the toes are uniform in depth.
Yeah.
Because they use all 5 of their toes to push forward, where they have that mid-tarsal break.
Yeah.
And that's what propels them forward. So that's another thing that I look for.
I think that a lot of them here, for whatever reason, it's like they take their toes and lift them like that. It's like they walk and they don't put them. I don't know if they don't want the mud in their toes. Maybe they're like us and they don't want the mud in their toes. Who knows? But for whatever reason, I find just the big toe most of the time, and all the other toes are lifted up. It's like they walking like this, they push down and all the toes are up. It's really weird. It's kind of odd, but I'm sure there's a method to madness to it. But like I said, most of the time the toes are not that visible.
And I tell you too, that old black swamp mud that you was talking about, that stuff is like glue.
Oh yeah.
It's horrible.
And if you take your shoes off and try to walk through it, you naturally want to kind of lift your toes out of it. You don't want to dig your toes into it. Maybe that's what they're doing. It's really cool. Something I find on a regular basis back there are, especially in the very, I call living room areas, like where they're in and out a lot, is pushed over trees, and they're like boardwalks. And a lot of these areas I go into, they change depth. They'll go from like no water all the way up to about 3 foot, 2 foot of water on most of the time, average about 2 foot of water. Well, that's about the log that sticks out of the ground is about 3 foot around. So it's just enough where there's a perfect boardwalk, and all the trees connect. No matter which way, they're all connecting somehow, all the way through the whole forest. And I thought about that too in some other areas, like even smaller logs, you find through different areas. And then I'm like, if I was something and I didn't want to be heard, I could get on those trees and walk on those with my soft padded feet. You would never hear me walking, and you hear me, it sounds like an alarm going off. Crunch, 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 crunch. I found areas where it looks like they set an alarm with sticks just thousands of sticks everywhere. I'm like, there's no way this many sticks are just falling out of the trees. It looks like it was laid in, going into their area. You're not going to be able to walk through there without making a sound and alerting them, you know?
Mm-hmm. I know I talked on a show a while back about, a lot of ape species, chimpanzees and gorillas especially, are really self-aware, and they try not to leave tracks. And it kind of falls in with a lot of Bigfoot behavior too, because you hear a lot of, I think one of them was called the rock hopper, but you'll see Bigfoot step from one rock to the next rock to the next rock to the next rock. So it's not leaving impressions on the ground, so it can be tracked. So that may have a lot to do with why those trees are all interconnected like that too. Prevents a trackway for something to find it.
90%. 90%. What's that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'll just say 90% of the footprints and trackways that we find are a foot off the trail, in the grass area. If there's grass down the middle of the trail, that's where I find them. But they're never usually down the middle of the road. It's usually always off to the left or right. And I can't tell you how many times I found two or three different size footprints in the same size footprint, in the same footprint. They walk in each other's footprints, especially the juveniles. 100% juveniles walk right through their parents' footprints.
Wow, that's pretty neat. Moving on here, let's talk about the southern Sasquatch, especially like out west, Washington State, or California, Oregon. They talk a lot about Sasquatch kind of being like this, real peaceful forest hippie. It's not really aggressive or anything like that. But a lot of southern reports, there's a lot of aggression in Bigfoot behavior and Bigfoot interactions with humans in the South. Do you guys have any aggressive encounters like that in Florida?
I think personally that we might have two different species, some type of subspecies, and I think that's what a skunk ape could be. To be honest, I think that a skunk ape is a little different. If everything from about Tampa south seems to be more skunk ape, I think there's still Sasquatch mixed in, regular Sasquatch, but whatever they are, that's farther south, doesn't seem to be quite as intelligent, less tree structures, and a lot of times you'll get four toes instead of fives. But they're more primal feeling, like they are more aggressive, a little more primal, and we've had like more grunting and different sounds, different other sounds, like out in the areas like where from Tampa north where I'm at a lot. I think it's more Sasquatch, and because they seem to be more intelligent, and I've had both. I mean, I've had I've had something growl at me that scared me. That was the first time I ever went by myself after my first incident in Homosassa. I had something growl at me, and that thing, when it growled at me, it terrified me. And I walked into an area I felt like I shouldn't have walked into in the middle of the day, fully camoed out. And that thing growled at me, and I had to come back out. I was about 4 miles in on a bike ride and walking together. And in a preserve, you're not allowed to drive into at all, only horseback and bicycle. And by the time I got back to my truck, I was throwing up, I was sick, and everybody said I got hit with infrasound. And for 4 days, my ears felt like they were swollen. That's the worst I've ever felt. And I got hit by that 2 times. I think I've been hit with it, and it's knocked me down both times, and I got sick. But I've never had another one since then. It's really odd. But most of the time, it's not aggressive. Usually, it's like curious, is what I take. I take it more as a curious thing. But I have heard a lot more aggressiveness south, and I think that's where you're hearing your reports is probably what a lot of the people from Tampa south, more skunk ape, is what you're getting the aggressiveness from.
Yeah, and then too, a thing that I kind of go back to is the Falk monster in Falk, Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And, that thing was fairly aggressive, where it attacked the house and things like that. And, a lot of people say the further south you go, the more aggressive they get. And, you get a lot of reports from Alaska too, that they're super aggressive. Like I said, in like California, places like that, they talk about they're real calm, real gentle, all this other stuff. And then you get up into Alaska where they say, oh God, they'll kill you. So, I think that
I think they're like us, man. The more I'm around it, the more temperament. I think they're like us, man. I think they're just, you got good ones, you have bad ones, you've got family met ones, you've got singles. I think the single male is the worst one you can run into. I think that lone wolf male, that alpha, or that lone out male that's by himself doing his own thing, that rogue is the one you don't want to run into. And I think when you run into him, he's the one that lets you know, and he's more territorial, and he'll run you out. The family ones, I really believe, like, they're more like, oh, this guy's got a family. He's not here to hurt us, you know? And the more I'm around a family group, I feel as a family group, the more I think they start letting their guard down. And then I think they let their young ones start kind of interacting. I think that's when we start getting all the mischievous stuff going on. I think that's kind of how it seems. That's it. In the 3 different areas I've really been doing a lot of time in, that's what I've noticed the most. It's like they start letting that guard down, and then they let their young ones get closer to you. But I think they're a lot like us.
We had Thomas Seawood on the show, and he said, beware of the rogue. That's his big thing, beware of the rogue. And that happens all throughout the animal kingdom. If you have a family group, you have that one male that finally gets big enough and they have to kick it out.
Right.
So that one's rogue. He's on his own. He's out there trying to figure out himself in the world. And I mean, that happens with people too. Once you get away from your parents, that's when things, that's when you really come about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You make a lot of mistakes. You tear a lot of stuff up.
A 20-year-old, when I was in my 20s, I was a wild male. My 20s were hell.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
I'm a lot different. I'm a lot different as a family man.
Let's talk about your encounter that you had recently with your family, where you and your son witnessed what you believe to be a young Sasquatch.
Yeah,
and
we've got
all fours.
Yes, do you want to hear?
With the
you want me to tell you? We had 2 encounters within 3 days. You want me to tell them both real quick? They laid into each other. So
yeah, go ahead.
The first, me, Christina has 2 children, and I have two children. So on Friday night, this is only 2 weeks ago. And on Friday night, we decided last minute, we're going to go for a Jeep ride. And we took her 2 kids. I didn't have mine. And we went for a little quick Jeep ride. And there's a trail that you're not technically supposed to go into this area. So, but I can get in there because my Jeep's not that big. So I went in, and about the time we pulled in, you got to go down the hill. We were there 15 seconds. I start to go down the hill, and I see these giant eyeballs looking back at me, and I hit the brakes, and everybody in the Jeep, oh my God. Christina's just in shock. Her daughter's behind me going, oh my God, these eyeballs, they were so big. And it looked like it was only about 5 foot off the ground or so. But like the light, the way it catches, you can see it. Well, this thing, we're watching it, and it's looking right at us. And then it looks away, and then it stands up, and this thing goes up to 8 foot, every bit of it. Like he wasn't I think he was hunched over, and we think he was hunting because Kate goes, I see deer. I see deer. And behind it were the little green eyeballs from 2 deer back there, about 10 yards farther past it. So we think it was crouched down hunting behind this big tree. And it stood up, looked over, looked back at us, put his head down, and walked off. 2-3 big steps and was gone. And it was like, oh my God. Like his eyeballs were just so big and bright, yellowish green. It was amazing. So my kids get jealous. They didn't get to see this. So on Monday, they had no school that day. So I picked them up, and I was bringing them back, and I was going to take them to school on Tuesday. So I'm like, hey, y'all want to run into the area and go check our gifting spot for a minute and see if there's any footprints back there where we saw the eye shine? They're like, yeah, let's do it. So we go walking in, and that's where we found this one. We went back behind where we saw the eye shine, and there was a game trail running back in there. And that's where I found these footprints. There was 3 or 4 of them that were this size and not huge. They definitely didn't match the eye shine we saw. But so I call Christina. Christina's like, I'm like, hey, can you bring me some plaster? We've got good footprints. I want to make castings of. She's like, sure. So she comes up, brings it to me. We make the casting, and we go, walking down the trail while these are drying down this horse trail. And on our way back, I got lost. And as I'm coming back through the woods, I'm trying not to let them know I'm lost, but I'm trying to cut over directly to where the footprints are. And I went into an area I'd never been. And it's had this deep little valley cut. As we come walking up, I just froze. And I'm like, it was right there, 5.5 foot tall, not tall, maybe 6 foot at the most, but it was twice as wide as me. But this thing was standing there, and I saw it clear as day. It took 2 steps, and then on the 3rd step, it went down to all 4s. And when it went to all 4s, it never missed a beat. Like, that's the part of me I can't understand, because I feel like they're more human than they are primate, but this thing did a primate move, and it went down to all 4s, and it was moving when it was, I've never seen anything like it. My son didn't see that. I had to pick him up. And as I picked him up, he could see its back and he could see his head running through the bushes. And then he went back to 2 legs again to go up the hill, like back on 2 going up the hill, like never missed a beat. And this thing was jet black with the most beautiful, well-groomed hair I've ever seen on something in the wild. Like, it was almost shiny. It looked like he blow dried it and brushed it. It was beautiful. I was blown away at how pretty its hair, or fur, hair, whatever you want to call it. It was beautiful.
That's incredible. I'm fascinated with the quadrupedal movement. I've only heard a few reports where people talk about it being down on all 4s. In my own encounter, it stayed on 2 feet. And what was the motion like from 2 feet to 4 feet and then back to 2 feet? How was it?
It literally took. It was bipedal, standing on the right-hand side of the trail, and it took 2 human-looking normal footsteps. Boom, boom, and on the 3rd one, it went down to its 4, and it was like it didn't have to strain at all. It was just on the ground, and it was in full go mode. As soon as those 2 hands came down to the ground, that thing hit a gear and was gone. I mean, I've never seen something move as fast as this thing was moving. I don't know how fast it was going, but I mean, it was, and it never just right through the tree brush and everything. And all you can see is this back and a head going, just getting it. And if it was wild. And then when that thing went back up, I mean, he didn't miss a beat going back up too. He may have put his arms out to try and go up, help it, but it was like back to 2 legs. You could see it on 2 going up, and it was gone that quick, out of sight. But this was,
wow.
It happened. It was a few seconds. I mean, it went across the trail, all the way across, and watched it go up the hill. So it happened for a few minutes, like a few seconds. We were watching it. It was pretty clear.
Wow.
It was only 20 yards away. I couldn't see a face, but this thing looked like, picture a gorilla. If a gorilla went to the gym and was like more lean and went to the gym, like kind of boxy, its upper body was boxy like a gorilla, not like a bear. It had a bigger upper body than it did lower.
Wow. That's incredible. Sounds like the transition was like smooth.
Very
2 feet, 4 feet.
It was very smooth.
And that we don't get a lot of reports of the quadrupedal movement here in Virginia. And I'm just fascinated with it because, it happens, around, but you don't get a whole lot of reports of that here. But the gait that a Sasquatch has anyway is the only thing that's human about it is that it's on 2 feet when it's walking.
Yeah. Right.
Other than that, it's completely different. They're bent forward, knees were bent as it walks, That's based on my own observations and things like that. But people say, oh, you can replicate that movement. And I always tell people all the time, if you think you can walk like that, get up from your couch, lean forward, bend your knees, walk to the refrigerator, and walk back to the couch and tell me what your legs are.
Right. You're not doing it. There's no way.
Yeah.
And the way these things move through swamps, through anywhere, whatever terrain they're in, we can't move that fast if it was a pavement, you know?
No, no. And it's so smooth. There's no upper body movement.
Right.
You know, if you see somebody walking, and I'm the word for it. You know,
that's what's funny though, is because when it was on all fours, it was the same thing. It was like it was just floating across. It wasn't even no movement. It wasn't like its head was going, you know. It was just going, and then back up and was gone.
I'm an old Marine, and I've always used the world's worst. They call it diddy bopping. I move when I walk. I can't help it. And you know, you don't see that in the locomotion of the Sasquatch. It is super smooth. It's almost like they're skiing or something. It's not really even like watching a human walk. Like I said, the only reason you can say it's human-like is it's on 2 feet, and that's it.
Yeah, and the way they move when they don't turn their neck, they turn their body when they go around. I've got a video that's slowed down and it's not clear. I got one good frame out of it where I saw something to me that looked similar to Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. It looked a lot like him. But he looks like he's staring out that way. But the movement in the video, like you see it just go back behind the tree. Like it's like that. Like it just rolls. It's not a turn their neck. It just rolls, you know, and it goes back. And I've seen that on other videos, but it's just like, I guess it's because of where their neck muscle attaches, you know, how it attaches. It's just, they don't have really much neck to move. It just rolls. It's funky the way it is, but it's really cool.
Oh yeah. I think, you know, like you said, you brought up a good point. A lot of times in Texas, they call them no necks because it looks like their head sits directly on their shoulders because they're, what do they call that? Deltoids are so big. Yeah, they're so big that there doesn't appear to be a neck.
Right.
And I don't think they can turn their head. You know, if you watch a lot of these really big bodybuilders, they can't turn their head either. They have to swing their whole body.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with it.
I would agree.
I'm going to move on right here real quick. Florida is like one of the most unique places on the planet. That's the only place on the planet where you have both alligators and crocodiles. Not only do you have alligators and crocodiles, but you have the eastern copperhead. You have rattlesnakes. You've got water moccasins. You've got, like I said, crocodiles, alligators, bears, hogs. People have no clue how dangerous wild hogs are. Florida's a really dangerous place. What type of safety precautions do you and your team use when you're out on a research area?
You have to have snake boots. There's no doubt. Like that's one of the first major things for everywhere we walk, man. I've stepped on moccasins and rattlesnakes a lot of times. A lot of moccasins. I've stepped on rattlesnakes quite a few times. But I mean, we've got everything in Florida will hurt you or kill you. I mean, it's like that. I've stepped on alligators. You know, I've everything. Like, I mean, I grew up with it, and it's never bothered me that bad. Like, I guess, you know, what bothers me the worst is probably the banana spiders that you walk into. There's a lot of things people don't even know about. We have banana spiders everywhere, and you walk into them, and they're the size of your hand, and you right in your face. I hate those. But I mean, there's other things too. Yellow jackets. We got a lot of yellow jackets, and you'll step on an in-ground yellow jacket nest, and you can get killed. They can absolutely kill you. You get stung so many times. I get stung all the time by moving palmetto fronds. There's a lot of regular little paper wasps that are in the palmetto fronds. That happens all the time. Red ants, fire ants. We have more fire ants, I think, than anywhere in the country. But we've got everything you can think of. But I just carry. I don't really carry. I'm not a big gun guy, but I do carry a big knife. I carry a Bowie knife, and I also have another knife that I carry. And I carry a machete a lot. I have a machete I carry with me, which looks more like a sword. And that's pretty much those two. I can handle whatever I need to. I do carry a starter pistol with me sometimes just to make a loud pow, just to freak something out. But you're 100% right. the hogs are what I'm most nervous about out there. I haven't seen, I've been here my whole life. I've never seen a bear in the wild. I know we got them, but I've never seen one in the wild. But hogs, you can, a hog can mess you up. And we've got some big ones. We've got, there's signs of hogs out here in my area. This one of the FWC, the Florida wildlife guys, told me, he's like, hey, be careful back there in this area. He's like, there's a hog back there that's 1,000 pounds. He's like, I'm not lying. This thing is like a hogzilla back there. And I've seen footprints as big as my hand, hog prints back there. So that's the one that's what I don't want to run into. For sure. I have.
Yeah. And
you want to know?
Growing up on a farm, my grandmother always told us to be careful when we was feeding the pigs. She said, don't fall in the hog lot, they'll eat you. And I always thought she was just talking trash. Come to find out, they'll eat you.
They'll eat you. Yeah, no doubt. One of the weirdest things we ever found, right? You said you're a hunter, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you been out in the forest or out in the woods anywhere and found a hog with 4 broken legs?
Never.
We found a hog with 4 broken legs alive. Back in one of our active areas. We had David Shealy with us that day. I had David Shealy with me that day with our group. And a couple minutes before we found the hog, a tree limb, there was no wind blowing. And a tree limb about 15 to 20 foot long and about 10 inches, 8 inches around, green, not rotten at all, from 30 foot in the air came crashing down. Boom. And we were freaking out, like, what in the heck was that? No wind blowing. So we go around the corner a couple minutes later, and Dave's like, Mike, what's that? Watch out. And I look, I'm like, that's a hog. I get up close to it, and and I'm like, oh shit, he couldn't do nothing. He kind of give up, and he couldn't do nothing. He had 4 broken legs. I think that we interrupted that thing's meal, or he had broken his legs and was coming back for him. And I think he was up in that tree watching us. And I think he slipped up and walked too far out on that limb or something, trying to get a look at us. And that whole tree limb came down. And David said it was one of the craziest things he's ever had happen. And David's had a lot of crazy stuff happen. That was wild. For that limb to come crash down and then to find that hog with 4 broken legs a few minutes later, that was the weirdest thing. And we went back the next day, that hog was gone.
I'm just going to be honest with you. If you come across a hog with 4 broke legs like that in the wild, the other hogs are going to eat it before you ever get to it. That's all there is to it. They will prey on each other, and that's pretty incredible. I believe you're right. I believe you interrupted a hunt.
Yeah. Well, where this hog was at is the same area I was spent 2 years watching this family group, and I found a tripwire back there. That was one of the weirdest things I've ever found. I found hunting blinds. I found all on this one trail. It was a real narrow little trail back there, but it looked like a person has been walking it daily back there. And there was, on that trail, it followed a fence perimeter, and there was a freaking vine that was about, I don't know, maybe an inch around, one of them old water vines. And it was around a tree and then around another tree and then went down about 40 feet straight as an arrow, perfectly horizontal, about 3 foot off the ground, perfect deer height. If a deer was running 2.5, 3 foot, something like off the ground, it looked, and where it was at the end of that fence line. If you're standing here and you're running them this way, he only had one way to go, right into that tripwire. It was the weirdest thing I ever found. It had a stick in it, twisted and locked onto a tree to keep the tension on it. And it was like, taut, perfect taut.
Wow. How far off the trail was that?
The tripwire?
Yeah.
It was at the end of the trail. If you walk down the fence line, there was a trail on this side of it, and you got to go down this way. You got to go down and make a left. So it was right off to the edge of it. So if something's running, it only has one way to go. If you're standing on that edge, on that trail, it had one way to go, right into that tripwire. It was only about 10 feet off the trail. but there was no other way for anything to go across it. It had to go through that spot if it was running away from something.
What do you think? Do you think there was any chance that it could have been something that maybe a poacher had set up or something like that?
No, not with this, man. And not in this area. Not in this area, because nobody goes back there. Nobody. We had cameras back there at one time, and in a year, this is the most active area we've ever had. And in 1 year, we saw two people go back there ever. One was a cop with a canine walking around back there looking for something. Don't know what it was, but we've never seen anybody or signs of anybody back there. It's very remote area. And that's what I said. It had these trails that looked like people were using them, but nobody was. But it was very odd. And right on that same trail was 3 trees kind of twisted together, big trees. Only one of them was from there, and it had leaned over. And at the top of it, were the 3 trees were like kind of braided together. And at the top of it, there was 3 different types of trees making what looked like a blind up there. There was palmetto palms, there was oak trees, and pine tree, all up in the same cluster. It was odd. And it looked like you could be up there hiding in it and jump down right onto something from the trail. The whole area looked like it was set up for hunting, for hunting, but not like primitive hunting without a gun, without a knife, with like, you know what I mean? It was like picture like a caveman hunting is what it felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. Got a question for you here. What do you think the population of Sasquatch in Florida is like? Do you think it's stable? Do you think the population has decreased? Or do you think the population is increasing?
I think we have a lot more than people think. I think there's certain areas that like certain forests that are completely not messed with. I think these things are in big family groups. I think they're in pretty good sized family groups or clans, however you want to put it. But I know of 3 areas where I know they're family groups back there, and I don't know how many of them. The one area in particular, I feel like it's a really big family group. There's so much activity goes on. Most of my videos have come from that area. I just posted a little video where you can see this thing, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't see nothing. I don't see nothing." So I'm trying to get it where I can clear it up, and you can come in and look at it. If you really look at this little clip, you can see them between the 2 cypress trees. This black figure, and he's just sitting there watching me. And then I zoom in on it, and it pixelates, but you can see it. He has white under his chin. And then about 30 minutes from that video, I was in another spot, and I getting that feeling. I was like, I kept hearing him moving behind me. And I look around, and I found him again. I caught him again on video between another tree, and I would film like behind me and sideways, so I'm not looking like I'm looking at him. And that's where I would catch these little videos. And they're nothing clear, but they're always about 50 yards away, but just out of reach where you can't get a good clear picture every time.
Yeah. And just to be honest with you, photos and video, especially cell phone videos and some of these GoPro cameras and things like that, they're not real high resolution. When you do zoom in on it, everything pixelates so bad you really can't see anything. But
right.
That's the hard part about it. You can definitely see it from your perspective, but trying to show it to somebody else, that's where it gets difficult.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
Another question for you. I know your group had a hair sample that had been studied, and I watched a video on that today.
Okay.
And I was really fascinated with that hair sample. And can you give us a little information about that?
Well, Marie has more information on that, because that was her and Bob were out when they found that hair sample. I wasn't with them when they found that hair sample. That was them 2 were out. Mm-hmm. We're there's not always that we're all together. We're always either Marie and Bob are doing something, me and Christina are doing something, Ruby's doing something. We're always all out, but lately, since we've all kind of moved, we can't get together as much as we want to actually be together. But I believe that's the hair that they found on top of a log where they look like something had been stepping over it. is what it was. And he was stepping over. I've been to the area where it happened. It's also the area they found a bunch of weavings at. And these weavings were the most odd, intricate, beautiful looking things. They were so unique. It was funny. I actually sent those to Thomas, pictures of them. And he said to leave those alone and do not touch them. That those are the type of things you do not touch when you find them, is what he told me. And but that area, I know that hair sample came from a log that it was rubbed raw, like they had been stepping over it on a regular basis. And that's where Bob was looking at it and found that hair.
I know it's a really fascinating video. The guy that looked at the hair said that it was the hair outside diameter was pretty much the same. He said he had it about, I think he said 55 microns or something like that wide. And there was no visible medulla.
Right.
And that the scaling on the hair was similar to human size scaling on a human hair. And he said it looked really close to some hair that he had sampled from redheaded people.
Huh? Yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
There's only about 2% of the population that's redheaded.
Right.
But the thing that I thought was the most fascinating about it was that the hair was actually two colors. And that's something that I've noticed with a lot of hair samples that people have. They're not just one color. Like if Mike Aguilar loses a hair in the woods, it's going to be brown, or it's going to be black, or it's going to be red or something all the way through. Or, it may be black and gray, as you get older. But he said this was red with brown in it. And that's something I talk about quite a bit on the show too. Sasquatch has all of these colors in his coat. And, it's perfect camouflage. A lot of people say, oh, well, Bigfoot phases out. But I think a lot of that is that Bigfoot's camouflage, its environmental camouflage is so good that it can just, like, I call it a Homer Simpson. Because you know how Homer backs into the bush and just disappears?
Yeah.
I think that's what happens all the time when people say it phased out. I think it just steps back into the foliage and it just gone.
And something else that, like, on some of the other hairs that we found, I remember I found a hair off of my friend Tim found one off of a footprint casting that I had, and he analyzed it, and the hair was clear. It was weird. It was like a clear hair, and it had no medulla on it. But when you put it, it was clear in the light. It was clear in the light, but as soon as you took the light away from it, it was dark. Like, it changed. It was really odd, how it changed from light, like transparent almost, to dark. That's a weird hair, And I've seen other hairs. I've seen other hair samples do that, where it's like you put a light on it, and it's dark, and you bring it back and it almost turns green. I've seen them like change. It's weird. Like it's like chameleon how it changes. It's really odd.
Yeah, it is. And hair samples, I think, as far as evidence goes, everybody thinks the hair samples are going to be, the key to it. I don't necessarily think so, because it's really, really hard to get any type of DNA from a hair. It has to be a perfect storm to get DNA from a hair.
Yeah, and it comes back anyway. It comes back 98% human. Yeah, or undiscovered is the last 2%. Like, what does that even mean? Obviously something's going on if you're getting it 98%. What's the other 2%? It comes back either chimpanzee or primate or unknown every time.
And, I take a lot of heat over this, but, our family, we've got a lot of Cherokee and Shawnee heritage in our family. I'm a quarter Cherokee and Shawnee mixed on my dad's side, and I'm a quarter Cherokee Indian on my mother's side. And there's a lot of stories between the Cherokee and the Shawnee both about how Sasquatch would take women from the tribes and breed with them, and they had offspring. And, throughout prehistory, there's all kinds of evidence that pre-humans mated with each other. They think that's what happened to Neanderthals. Neanderthals didn't necessarily die out, but they bred themselves out where they interbred with Homo sapiens. So I think a lot of that has to play into the Bigfoot world too. Dr. Melba Ketchum, she did that study, and a lot of people have debunked her study, but she said that it was human on the mother side and unknown primate on the father side. And based on the native stories and things I've heard, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a really viable, outcome.
Especially a male. I mean, you think about it, like even with my other half, like when we're out there, like they act different. The males definitely, I get different responses when she makes sounds and does things and smells, and she gets a different response out there. I guarantee if she was to go out by herself, she would have the most action of all of us.
I believe you're right. It's really wild, and kids too. There's something about children. Sasquatch is fascinated with children.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But they're really fascinated with children.
I think that's why. I think that's one of the main. Like I said, that's what's that? No, I was just saying. I think that's the main reason.
I'm sorry.
No, I just said I think that's the main reason why we've been fortunate, me and my family, to get so much attention is the lots of children. Like they're fascinated with them, and we're unique in that. Not too many research groups and not too many researchers have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old actively researching with them. And I've caught some hell from that. People saying, "Oh, you're endangering them," but I'm not going to take my children into somewhere I feel like I'm endangering them. And I've never had an issue. And ironically enough, wherever there's Sasquatch, I don't see any other predators. You ever notice that? You see no other predators anywhere these things are at. It's kind of odd, especially in Florida. 100%. You won't see anything except maybe an occasional coyote footprint. Nothing indirectly in their area.
Yeah, and like I said, Florida has a lot of predators. A lot of predators. And I'm not just talking about crocodiles and alligators either. You've got the Florida panther, you've got coyotes, bobcats, just all kinds of stuff out there. And like you said, it is kind of rare. It's almost like when a super predator. Yeah, the big snakes and all that other stuff. But when you have a super predator like Sasquatch that moves in, if you'll notice, the other predators pull back.
Oh yeah,
I've kind of noticed that.
Yeah, and honestly, I've never had anything threatening when I'm in there with them, other than them. I've never had anything from another animal threaten me in their area.
I've had some pretty close calls with different animals, and there's a difference between what you feel with a terrestrial animal that's known and all this other stuff. I've been face to face with black bear before. Coyotes were eat up with coyotes back here. Things like that. But there is a difference when you're in the proximity of Sasquatch. You feel different. The environment feels different. There's a huge difference in the feeling that you have. I know you talked about this a little bit earlier about the difference, Sasquatch and skunk ape. You think skunk ape might be some type of subspecies. What's the difference between like the northern Bigfoot in Florida and the southern Bigfoot in Florida?
I think that from what we've heard, what I've learned is that it seems to be the skunk ape seems to be not quite as intelligent. It has that more of a pungent odor, and it maybe probably because it's in more swampy conditions. The farther south you go, it's a lot more stable swamp. But they also they're just the things they do. Like when you go into these areas, you don't find tree structures like you do. You don't find areas like that. It's like it's something different, and it just seems like it feels like a different creature, and it feels like it's not as inviting to you when you're in the area. I don't know how else to say it, but the hair seems to be longer on them as well. Like it's not like I would like the hair samples that we found up here. The longest I found was about a 3-inch long black hair. And I've heard they've been longer than that down there. Like they've been longer and shaggier to them. And I mean, that's the big difference that I've noticed is that I think that it's primal versus more intelligent and more
intelligent.
Ape-like.
Intelligence is a big thing. And I've talked about this a bunch on the show too, based on my own observations. And that's the only thing that I can base my research on is my own observations. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I see a lot of animal intelligence when it comes to Sasquatch, but I don't know if I see that much human intelligence as far as, tool making or fire use or anything like that. And, when you talk about and don't get me wrong, Sasquatch is an extremely intelligent being. Okay. I'm not going to get that wrong. You're dealing with an intelligence that's almost as good as ours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then you was talking about how the skunk ape seems to be more primitive. That's interesting to me because that would show a definite, separation between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Height difference or anything you think between the two of them?
Some people say the skunk apes are shorter and not as bulky, but like it depends. Like David Shealy's video from down the Everglades, I was back there where that happened. I walked that path, and whatever that thing was, that wasn't short because you could. I'm with my boots on. I'm 6 foot with my boots on, and I laugh because I'm 5'11", but I get that extra inch with my boots. Okay, and when I'm walking through that sawgrass in the reenactment we did, you can see my head about here and my cowboy hat bouncing as I'm walking through the sawgrass. This thing was his chest and up was out of the sawgrass or more, and he's just walking. I think
I know the video you're talking about. That's the one that's walking through the tall grass.
Yeah. What people don't realize is that's like 6 foot tall grass and 2 foot of water that thing was walking through. And I'm walking out there and I'm looking down because there's snakes, there's alligators, everything's out there in the middle of that. It's not just grass, it's sawgrass in the middle of a swamp. And it's all water during the wet season. That was in July when that happened. So you're walking in 2 feet of water. And humans, we look down because we don't want to step on something that's going to bite us. This thing looks straight ahead, just getting it. Never looks down. Watch the video. He never looks down one time. He's just going.
And I tell you something too, sawgrass is not pleasant. That stuff will eat you up.
No, yeah, it sucks. I think that's why he had his arms up. I think he's moving through that stuff. He's got his arms up because of that reason. I think, why wouldn't they be able to get cut up just like we would if, the hair probably helps to an extent, but under your armpits is probably a soft spot for them too.
Yeah. And, people have big questions about the skunk ape, why they call it skunk ape. There's parts of Florida that do not have skunks, but still you'll get a skunkish smell down in Florida, whenever you come into contact with the skunk apes, and that's kind of how it got its name.
Right. I've never seen a skunk.
A lot of people. Oh, I mean, back here there are hundreds of them, thousands of them. They're everywhere.
I've never seen one. The only time I ever saw a skunk was I was in Ohio when I lived in Ohio for a year, and I got to see them and smell them. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that too. A lot of the smell might just be the fact that you are in the deeper swamps. It's humid, it's wet, and I think it's a lot of body odor, probably some mold growing into fur, things like that.
You know what smell I smelt the most from on the? I smelt it many times, and Christina got to smell it not that long ago. To me, you ever smelt when hogs are real strong? It's a combination of like how hogs get that gamey, horrible smell, that mixed with a wet dog and something else. It's like It's like a combination of the two. I haven't smelt the skunky smell that much. To me, I have smelt. We have methane gas pop up a lot. That methane from walking through the mud, you'll see it. I've seen trackways where something had walked through. Every time you step in the mud, it brings that oily look of whenever it comes to the surface. And I've seen a trackway I've followed. You couldn't get anything out of it because it was just an impression in the water. But you can see the footprints where this thing walked through, heavy enough to get down to where the methane gas was coming up out of it. Now that will make you smell like sulfur and other things really bad too. That methane gas.
It's all those rotten leaves and things under the water, you know, that builds up that methane.
Boy, it stinks. Yeah, it stinks. But the smell I smelt the most though is that wet dog, hog mixed with hog and other type of smell. It's much more pungent than a regular hog smell, and it's got the extra layer to it. It's pungent.
Yeah, and you know, that's something that I say too. Throughout the entire world, I can give a description of what I saw, or you can give a description of what you saw, and people will say, "Yeah, that's, you know," like I just had somebody come on here and say, "Cooey from the." Well, I'll bring it up right here. Cooey from the Yowie mob down under. So obviously, that would be Australia, and they have the Yowie down there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can describe Sasquatch here in Virginia, or you can describe Sasquatch that you see in Florida, and it will match what they see in Australia. Or, you know, it may be smaller like the orang pendek in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it may be taller or whatever in, you know, the Alps, or not the Alps, but the Himalayas with the Yeti or whatever. But all the descriptions are basically the same: giant, hair covered, you know, whatever.
Well, look at us, man. Look at us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that's got a lot to do with it, too. And in my own research, I get stuck between, I think Sasquatch is an animal. It's some type of terrestrial being. And that's, you know, I'm not taking anything away from anybody that might say that it's spiritual or it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever. I'm game enough that I will listen to you. Yeah, I listen to everybody. But based on my research, what I see is physical. It's a physical, living, breathing. It's walking, it's eating, it's pooping, you know, whatever. And, you know, with that being said, I get stuck between 2 points. I think that it may be some type of pre-human. And, you know, Dr. Jeff Meldrum said that he thought it might be some type of robust Australopithecine, which I kind of got my own theories on that. I don't necessarily think that was right. I'm not going to take anything away from the late Dr. Jeff Meldrum because he was a brilliant man. But,
he was awesome.
You know, we had two robust Australopithecines about 2.8 million years ago. Paranthropus. You had Paranthropus boisei and you had Paranthropus robustus. And they were both smaller than humans, about the size of a chimp. And then people say, oh, well, what about the Gigantopithecus blackeye? And we don't know that much about that particular species. A lot of people say Gigantopithecus could be, you know, the start of Sasquatch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that might be off too, because the only thing we have really is just like a jawbone and some teeth. We don't have anything to show that it was bipedal or anything else. And They think it may have been more closely related to orangutans than it was to chimps or other pre-humans. So it's an interesting concept, but it is global, and that's something that I try to get all researchers to realize, that this is not just a United States, Canada thing. It is global. It's everywhere.
And it's the only thing that's global.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing.
And all of the descriptions. Hold on just a second here. Let's see. I can't even begin to pronounce that, but Brown Jack's also here. They're smaller, hairy fellers. Okay, I see what he's saying there. I know you've talked with Thomas Seawood. I've talked to Thomas Seawood too. He talks a lot about stick Indians, or he calls them the Buckwas, the smaller, hair-covered. I think that may be something similar to what he's talking about here from down in Australia. But still, yet those match. The descriptions match.
Right.
And I think that's an incredible thing to deal with. And with that being said, too, I think that there are subspecies of Sasquatch all throughout the world. And I think that, even here in the U.S., I don't think necessarily that we're dealing with just like one specific thing, because you hear people talk about the description is the same. It's giants, hair-covered, muscular, blah, 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 whatever. But then, like in my encounter, it was more human-looking.
Mm-hmm.
In the Patterson-Gimlin film, that was definitely more ape-looking. And I don't know how those two could be the exact same species. Maybe a subspecies of one or subspecies of the other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look around the world. I mean, it's not all white people. It's not all black people. It's not all Asians. It's not all Indian. It's not, we're lots of different cultures, lots of different, there's so many different things out there, so many different versions of humans. Why can't there be so many different versions of them, Yeah.
And I completely agree with that. I think, like one of the oddest subspecies that I've ever heard anybody talk about, and they called it the Gugway. And it was a native Canadian, I believe, First Nations from Canada that was talking about it. And he said it had a more prominent snout, almost like a baboon.
I've heard that. I've heard some about it before.
Yeah, large, hair covered, and things like that. And, that kind of makes you wonder, is that a subspecies of Sasquatch? Is that something different? What are your thoughts on the different types? Do you think that there's different types? Do you think that maybe we're actually seeing different things that are similar enough? Or what do you think about that?
I think 100% there can be different ones just like us. I mean, there are different parts of the world. I think they're adapted to different parts of the world. I've had this same thought. I've always had this thought. It's been a long time. The more I've been around it, the more I've been researching and learning this subject, I've realized something. I don't think we're from here. People talk about aliens and that they're aliens and stuff. What if we're the alien? What if they're from here? I mean, when you really think about it, they're adapted to everything on this planet. That hair, it serves as it covers your skin from the sun. It keeps you from being bit by mosquitoes and bugs. And that hair does a lot. It really helps you a lot. It's camouflage. It does a lot. What do humans have? We've been here for a long time. We're not adapted to anything. We burn in the sun. We get bit by mosquitoes. We can't hide. We can't do nothing. We have to cover with clothes. We're not adapted to anything on this planet. We destroy everything we touch. And it just, the more I've been around it, the more I feel like we're the aliens to this planet. You talk about God. I'm not saying I don't believe in God. I believe in a higher power. But what if that higher power was what created us? And what if they use something from this planet to help finish us off? And that's why they're the missing link.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. There's so many options out there. It's hard to nail down. And that's one thing I've learned too, since I've started, researching Bigfoot. When you think you have an answer for something, there's 100 more questions that comes up that kind of blows your one answer that you think you had completely out of the water. And
100%.
Yeah, and descriptions that you get, even like right here in my general area, like I told you earlier, I live right on the border with Kentucky. And people have described to me seeing, throughout this part of Virginia and Kentucky, and even up into West Virginia. And I live in a really weird area because I'm close to Kentucky, I'm close to West Virginia, and I'm close to Tennessee, even though I live in Virginia. We're right there on the very tip of Virginia, and we're just like super close to everything. But, throughout this little area right here, you hear reports of red, black, brown. I had a lady give me a report that her late husband had experienced, and it was a blonde color, almost white. And it's all within this one little area. And I think, the hair color variations and things like that kind of brings it back to it being almost human. So there I'm stuck again. Is it a pre-human, some type of pre-human, or is it an ape?
Well, I've got a lot of pictures that I'm just now starting to put out, and some videos, some old videos I'm starting to put out. I went through a phase where I put stuff out when I first started and got ridiculed for it. And I had to grow and adjust as I went on. And now I don't care. I don't care what somebody thinks. There's trolls and there's people that say what they're going to say, and you can have your belief and I have mine. I know what I've seen. You can't take that from me. I know what I've witnessed, what I've dealt with, and you can't take that from me. The only people I have a problem with are the ones that call my children liars when they're telling their stories. Other than that, I can deal with trolls. Don't bother me. But I've got some pictures I'm about to start putting up. I'll send you some of them too. I've got blurry pictures. I've got amazing blurry pictures, but they're blurry pictures. They're not legit going to help me with anything except show what I've found. I've got some pictures, and one of them is white. And this thing, when I walked in, it was raining that day, and it was in that active area. As I'm walking in, it was raining, and I caught them off guard. And it wasn't in a bad way, but I just caught them off guard, and they didn't hear me coming because of the rain. And I was videoing up ahead, and it sounded like a herd of elephants got up and took off, just crunching and crashing. And then it stopped, and I stopped, and I started walking forward. And, I didn't see nothing really. I heard it, didn't see it. Went back and reviewed my video. I've got one. It looks like he's on all fours on it. He's white. He's got a black face and a black chest, and he's white. On one frame, he looks like he's on his knuckles with his arms down like a gorilla. And the next frame, you see the tree on the left. He's on the left, and you see the tree here. The next frame, he's on the right of the tree now, looking at me, standing upright with a black face and a black chest. I'll send you those two pictures, and you'll be like, holy cow, that's crazy looking. Because I
know you mentioned you seen the one that had the white in his beard right in the front. And I say beard because I have one.
Yeah. He had a white patch, just like that.
I've heard that description before, black with a white patch going down from its chin down.
But if you were to take that video I put up, that little video, that little clip, I'm trying to get it cleaned up, and I'm going to redo a version of it now that I've gotten some better software, and I'm trying to clean it up and zoom it in a little better. And you can see it. He's got white under here. And now that I've told you that, if you look at that little clip, and you'll see when you get in, you see just the white more than anything. But I have another picture of the same one. And he's between another set of trees, right between the Y of the trees, about 7 foot off the ground. And you can see the white under his chin. He's let his face like this. He's not doing nothing but this. Like he's leaning against the tree looking at me like, what's he doing? This is how the picture looks. But you can see his little ear. You can see the white. And he looks like, this one looks like a gorilla. You would think it was a gorilla. So that goes back to, are they human or are they more animal? It's a never ending rabbit hole.
And I've talked to Chester Moore on the show. Do you know Chester?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Chester did a lot of Sasquatch research early in the probably mid to late 90s and early 2000s. And he's kind of got away from it now. He's not into it as much as he used to be. But Chester's a big wildlife guy. He's like the chief editor for Texas Wildlife Magazine and all this other stuff. I mean, he's an amazing guy. Oh, wow. And Chester has a theory that some of the Sasquatch sightings that we get in the United States might be feral primates. And I kind of scoffed at that for a second, and then I got to thinking about it. And Florida actually has a population of, I think, the rhesus monkeys. now. I believe it's what they are. They may be macaques. I'm not sure. It's some type of monkey species.
There's some macaques in the silver in Ocala for definitely.
Yeah,
I've seen them things jumping off of trees. That's wild, jumping into the water.
And I watched a video a while back, and he goes by Dale Brisby, and he talks about he's the world's greatest bull rider and all this other stuff. It's just comical and it's kind of fun to watch. But he had a guy on there that was talking about this fellow on his hunting ranch shot Bigfoot. And he told the story of it. And he said they dropped the guy off in a tree stand. So the guy was in the tree stand. It wasn't even daylight yet. And they heard like 5 shots just rapid fire rip off. And he's like, daggone, he's already shot one. So they turned around and went back down to see what was going on. And he was walking back up the road. No rifle, no nothing. And they asked him and said, what are you doing? And he said, he said, I shot Sasquatch. I said, what do you mean you shot Bigfoot? And he said, I was in that blind, and he said a big black hairy arm come in and grabbed my cell phone. And he said, I shot him. So, it wasn't even daylight yet, so they drove back down to the hunting blind. And you can see the hunting blind. There's 5 holes in the hunting blind from a high-powered rifle where this guy shot through the hunting blind. And they get up close to it, and there's a big puddle of blood underneath the hunting blind. So they decided, hey, we'll go back down at daylight and see what's going on. So they told that guy, I said, listen, we're going to get the sheriff's department stuff to come down here and help. And he said, I don't care if you get the Marines. I'm not going back out there. He said, I'm going to the lodge. I'm done. So they waited till it got daylight, and they started tracking it. And about 600 yards from where he shot it at, he said, there laid Bigfoot with a cell phone in his hand. He said they rolled that son of a gun over, and it was a gorilla. It was just a gorilla. And it was holding that guy's cell phone. So they called the sheriff's department and said, hey, listen, this dude shot a gorilla down here. The sheriff told him, said, oh, thank God. He said, that son of a gun's been on the loose for 2 weeks, tearing stuff up everywhere he goes. And they never told anybody about it.
Wow.
Anybody about it. So I think it's interesting how, we sit here and talk about these different types, but still yet there's the possibility that some of the things that we see might be feral primates.
Right.
And that's a for real possibility. But with the footprints and stuff, there's no denying what that is. Footprints are there. It's 100%. It's there. There's no way to get around it. Unacknowledged unknown here has a comment I'm going to bring up. It says, there is a diversity in the Sasquatch species, I've concluded. Yeah, I 100% believe you're right. A lot of things that, people say, well, one of the most common things that people say that people are misidentifying are bears. Oh, you didn't see Bigfoot, you saw a black bear. And I'll say this, and I've said it on the show several times too. If you look at an upright bear, somebody that has no experience with Sasquatch or anything else could say, yeah, that's a Bigfoot. Because it caught them off guard, it's dark, blah, 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 whatever. But if you take somebody that's been in the field for a while and knows what to look at and what to look for, when you look at a bear that's standing up, a bear is tubular. They're really round. They do not have shoulders.
Right.
And when you look up and you see shoulders on something, there's no denying what that is.
Right.
There's only 2 things out there in the woods that's going to have shoulders, and that's us and them.
Right.
And that's all there is to it.
And that's what that younger one, me and my son saw, and Christina and my daughter, it was so like, if you watch the little video clip, my daughter's crying. She's crying. I'm like, it's okay, honey. Are you scared? She's like, no, I didn't see him. She wanted to see him.
Yeah. She was mad.
She was so mad and so upset. She was sad. She's 7 years old. She was sad that she didn't get to see him. She was so upset. So that's why we went out Saturday, me and her just walking around. She's like, I want to go with just you, Daddy, so maybe we can see one. And so my son didn't feel like going, so just me and her went to go put some apples and some oranges and some different things back in our new little gifting area. I'm really trying to get this area more active. And I truly believe that this new area, I've had a lot happen in the last few weeks, and I think it's going to keep happening. And I think this is going to be an area where one of these days you're going to you're going to see a video I post, and you're going to be like, holy crap, he got it. I feel like it's going to happen.
I know.
Man.
I seen the videos of you and your daughter putting out stuff there in your gifting area. Tell something about the gifting. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, Mike. I am not a fan of gifting or trying to habituate, and I'll explain why before you get into explaining, your gifting area and things. I take like a black bear. Sasquatch and black bear have a lot of things in common as far as food sources, territory, and things like that. And around here, we've got a fairly large black bear population that's come back. Growing up in this county, there were no bears here. There were no deer here when I grew up. Now, I can't drive up my driveway. Well, I don't have to stop and let 4 or 5 deer walk across my driveway. Black bears are everywhere, especially where there's a dumpster. There's black bears. But these black bears get habituated to these food areas, and people come in and they'll feed them and things like that. And when people stop feeding them, that's when the trouble starts. That's when they start, breaking people's buildings or getting in to try to get to feed or whatever. So, that's kind of my problem with habituation sites. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? That's just my own theory on it. But tell us something about your gifting stations.
Well, like down in Pasco where I started all this, when I originally started doing a gifting spot down there, we don't have bears there. There are no bears in that county. I've never seen a bear in any of the areas I go into, except for up here. I know they're up here in certain areas. I've not seen one sign of a bear in this new area we've been going into. No tracks, no scratches, nothing that shows me any sign of a bear activity up here. There are Sasquatch signs. I've seen that. And the same thing with Pasco. Mm-hmm. I started putting out, trying different random things. And one of the most active things that I've noticed was Reese's peanut butter cups. Everybody hasn't had good luck with peanut butter, trying peanut butter. So I took Reese's peanut butter cups. You got a bright orange wrapper. You put it in a tree or you put it somewhere, and it's easy to find if it disappears. And that's what would happen in our old area. And with Marie and all of us, we were gifting that area quite a bit, and we had a lot of good things happen with it. We just tried things. It was just wanting to see what would happen, what kind of reaction. We put a bear out there, a little stuffed animal, and that little stuffed animal, we put it there, came back to check it one day, and it was face first in the ground, and the tag was ripped off. I'm like, okay, that was really odd. The tags are ripped off of it, and it was moved and put down in the mud. We brought it back, put it in the same spot, came back. It was upside down every time for a few months. This thing would be upside down. It had glass eyes. And I don't know if they didn't like the eyes or what, but it would be face down every time we went there. It was the weirdest thing. But those Reese's, man, I would get so many things happen. I took the long package of Reese's in there, and I would come check it. I had 2 little gifting spots back in that area. I would find them missing, and then I'd go to the other gifting spot, and they'd be there. And I'd find them where they'd look like they grabbed it and just went, and there'd be a bite mark. I've got wrappers still that I kept, I've kept them. And I found a 3-inch long black hair on a wrapper that was on the ground in between 2 footprints. This thing grabbed it and just took a bite and ate them, and had 2 footprints. And it was the same footprints that match this guy, the one that would follow me around the most in there. The same exact footprint, same footprint. But this new area, I've got some different things I'm trying. I'm just trying to see what happens. I had some salt licks. I've been trying that. And ironically, 8 foot off the ground, half the salt lick on one of them's gone. When I first found it the first time, it was like 3/4 of it was still there. And it was like licked up at an angle. It looked like something had been standing there licking it. It had mud on the back of it. It was weird. And everybody said a bear or a deer. This is up high enough. Our deer aren't that big. And you couldn't balance, I don't think, to try and get to where this salt lick was. But it looked like something was sitting there holding it, licking it. And then I came back to it most recently with my daughter, and it was like half gone now. But now it looked like something been chewing on it. So I don't know about that. But I haven't had much activity other than that salt lick. I put some apples. I just put some oranges to see what happens with that. I understand what you're saying, and I wouldn't do it if it was an active bear area. I definitely wouldn't do that. If the moment I found some signs that it was a bear doing it, I'd stop doing it, because I wouldn't want to draw bears into me either. You know, I definitely wouldn't want to do that, especially with my kids.
Yeah, no, that's a bad move. We got a question here from River Morris. Mike, do you know Mark Zansky from Crypto Reality? He's in Florida.
I've never met Mark, but I know people that's worked with him. And I saw a lot of his early stuff a long time ago. I am familiar with him for sure. I used to see a lot of, when I first started, I saw a lot of his stuff, but we've never met, ironically.
Let's see if we've got any more questions. Guys, if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to throw them up. The chat's been pretty busy, so I've had a hard time keeping up. We're going on. Well, we're actually over 2 hours here.
Man, it went by quick, didn't it?
Yeah, too quick, it seems like. I know what I'm going to do, Mike. I'm going to give you an opportunity.
What's that?
Yeah, tell me about it. I'll give you an opportunity. Go ahead and plug your YouTube page, whatever you've got going on, your group, whatever. Tell us where we can get in contact with you, where we can find you at, and all that.
Yeah, well, I've been a member of the Mid-Florida Bigfoot research team for almost 7 years now with Marie Dumont. And, we've established a pretty good name for ourselves. And I started, I still put everything in the group, and we do a ton of stuff together. But I also wanted to try and make this a way for me to push myself on my YouTube channel. So I've been really doing that. And there's things that I want to put out there on a more personal level with my kids, my children and everything. So that's why I'm really trying to push my YouTube channel, which is Squatching FL. And I'm going to come out with I'm going to have some cool hats and some shirts eventually. I'm just starting. I'm just getting into all that. But if you ever want to reach out to us, if you're in Florida or you want us to come look at something, we love doing that. You can reach out to Marie through the Mid-Florida page, or my number's on my number, and my website is on my page, on my Facebook page. So I've got my Facebook page is Squatching FL as well. So either way, you can reach out to me through Messenger, whatever you want, and I'm more than happy. I'm one of those people that reach out and talks to people. I'm not afraid to. I love hearing from people. So that's how I've found a lot of. I've met a lot of good friends through that way, and recently throughout in this area, meeting, learning new areas, and the area I've been researching now is because my friend Mike Noga, he reached out to me, and now we become friends, and we go out all the time together.
Excellent. Well, Mike, I just want to thank you for being on the show. I'm gonna have to end it because we're kind of way over time here, but. No, I really appreciate it, dude. It was an excellent show. I love talking to you. If you can you hang on just a minute after I close the show out?
Yeah, sure will, man. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for everybody watching, too. Yeah. I appreciate it.
I'd just like to say I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And once again, Sasquatch Watch Radio, if you're interested in Sasquatch, if you're interested in information, eyewitness testimony, anything, feel free to subscribe. Watch us. We're on YouTube. It doesn't cost anything. You can just come on and check us out. And that's kind of the way I prefer it, because the information is supposed to be shared. It's not supposed to be hoarded up. And I really appreciate everybody for watching tonight. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the week. And we'll see y'all next Monday. Good night.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We are incredibly grateful for our community. Because of you, we've surpassed 6,700 subscribers and continue to grow every day. Our mission here at StevuR is simple: to provide a platform for honest, down-to-earth discussions about Bigfoot, free from drama and ridicule. If you've enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word. If you're interested in being a guest, you can reach us via our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or by emailing us at sasquatchwatchradio@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to access our full archive dating back to 2008 and to stay updated on all upcoming episodes. If you've had a sighting or an encounter you'd like to report, let us know. We have a network of researchers across the United States ready to assist. You can now find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Please leave us a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to hear next. We'll see you next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep on squatching.